Hello, gang. This is Dr. Mark Andrew Holacek, Jefferson scholar, Ukrainian philosopher and scholar. And just a few words on just what happened in the White House, what I just saw. It's the most embarrassing moment I've ever witnessed in my life as an American. Prior to today, I've always called myself, in spite of the fact I'm doing a lot of research on Ukraine, I've always unblushingly called myself an American first and a Ukrainian next. That's done until Trump is removed from office. I typically fly an American flag and a Ukrainian flag in front of my house. Today, I took down my American flag, and it won't go up until Trump is out of office. That's all I can say. Um, the shameless bulldozing techniques that he and Vance used on Zelensky was disgusting. The whole scenario was disgusting, was clearly premeditated. They brought him in the office not to negotiate. They knew Zelensky wasn't going to agree to any mineral plan where he'd sell his country out, right, for 10 generations, where the United States would get half of their minerals and half of everything that goes on. Um, yeah, it was just something the likes of which I've never seen in my life. It will go down as one of the most embarrassing moments, if not the most embarrassing moments in United States diplomacy. And it was conducted on live TV in front of an international audience on purpose by Trump and his toady, J.D. Vance, right? And Zelensky was clearly blindsided. He didn't know what to say. And I applaud him for coming down and sticking with it and trying to get a word. The very fact that every time a point was made and Zelensky could not get a word in edgewise was evidence of this premeditation. And I did not expect much from this meeting because I knew Zelensky was not going to sell the farm to give everything that Trump wanted at the expense of Ukrainians. So I'm very proud of the way he conducted himself, and I'm very proud of the fact that he stood up for himself. And I think what you're going to see, other than Putin and some of the other Putin sympathizers, countries that sympathize with him across the globe, North Korea, Venezuela, and so forth, perhaps Hungary, you're going to see universal condemnation. You're going to see shame brought upon the United States if the United States Congress does not back Zelensky in this, if they back Trump, and if they back Putin. Trump is really a little puppy dog in Putin's doghouse here, and I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't even have clarity of thought at this moment. It's the most disgusting display I've ever seen. It's not anything that astonished me from Trump. Um, One should come to expect that at this point. But if the American people, right, can't see that this guy is a shameless dictator, that it's not about representing the interests of America at this point, but representing his own interests. He wanted to go on camera and try to shame Zelensky in front of the whole world to show that he's Donald fucking Trump. He is God. He is the king. And whatever he says just goes. He can bully this Zelensky around. And what we've seen today, as one person so eloquently said, Donald Trump is America is no longer the leader of the free world. It's Zelensky, that courageous young man fighting on behalf of freedom. Ukraine has been kicked around and tossed around for decades since they've become free in their fight for freedom as they pulled away from the USSR in 1991. And of course, there was a lot of corruption in Ukraine at the time because the very politicians that were supposed to be running the country once free were the ones who were schooled in Soviet propaganda and Soviet oligarchism. So it's very, very difficult. The West was distrustful of Ukraine at the time because Ukrainians were still using sort of a Russian schema for economic concerns. And so the West sort of was hands off towards Ukraine at the time. Russia was doing what it can to invite Ukraine back, into its welcoming arms. So Ukraine was caught in the bad scenario of trying and loving and wanting to be westernized, but yet not knowing how to be westernized and not being embraced by the West. And it's been fighting that war ever since. And we saw some changes going on in 2014 with Euromaidan. I think that's when there was a decided change in when they threw out Yanukovych. There was a decided change in Ukrainian history. One of the great events where the people spoke. They wanted westernization. They didn't want allegiance to Putin and Russia. And the Ukrainians spoke on that day for a few months where they loaded the Maidan and protested against what was happening. And again, Zelensky here is fighting for liberty, fighting for prosperity, fighting for the very life of his country. And the United States, right now, aligned with the murderous Putin. I want you to think about when Trump always talks about, look at the way he talks about the atrocities of war. Oh, the domes has fallen. Those beautiful domes have fallen down. They're never going to be seen again. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people are dead. Never once mentioned the Ukrainian children that were being captured and taken to Russia to be Russified so they could be members, they could be women later on who make babies for Putin, and the men who are taken away and stolen so that they can be schooled in Russian propaganda and be Russian soldiers years from now. Never mentioned the massive devastation, the fact that this was all premeditated. He never said anything. He was unwilling to admit that Putin started the war. I just have to be very careful in saying that. Easily calling Zelensky a dictator without saying anything about Putin. And Putin's a typical dictator. He's a murderous dictator. He's a wicked, vociferous man who deserves to be executed. That's not even right because he deserves a very slow, painful death for the sorts of things he's done to globally, Georgia and Ukraine, to his own people. Look at the poverty in which his own people live and how many hundreds of thousands of his own young men he throws to the battle line to be eaten up in his great meat grinder. And of course, Trump admires this scumbag, this fucking loser. And Trump is not much different than him. And, watch this carefully. I'm not speaking to the ditto heads, the Trumpites, the MAGA heads, the ones. Watched a very interesting interview on one of the YouTube channels where someone interviewed the MAGA people, the ditto heads. They asked this interesting question. Can Trump do anything? Is there anything conceivable that Trump might do that would make you not vote for him as president or not support him? Almost everybody interviewed said no. Someone asked, well, what if he murdered somebody? Goes, well, that's would not be good. But then again, other people are murderers too. The point is that, there's no sense arguing to the ditto heads. They don't know any better. I mean, they follow this man because they love being part of a cult. Right? It's a religion, the religion of Donald Trump. He's a god. So according to these morons, they're not going to change their mind no matter what I say or no matter what anybody says. But nonetheless, today, the last day of February 2025, will go down, and I'll use this words, they will go down in infamy as one of the most disgusting and embarrassing moments in American history. Many of the countries across Europe and globally will be embarrassed by this. America has lost its place. It's just lost its place as the leader of the free world. It's a dictatorship right now. I don't even know what else to say. I mean, please like, please share, please watch a lot of the videos. Please watch carefully what went down in the Oval Office and the way Zelensky was ganged up on. And it was the most embarrassing display I've ever seen in my life by an American statement, by an American president, and then the toady J.D. Vance sticking up for Trump, trying to get back in his good graces and so forth. I've said all along that this I spent a lot of time watching videos and reading and thinking about this at the expense of my own research on a book I'm writing, Putin's Obsession with Ukraine. And I can't help it, as it were, because I think this is the most important, one of the most important moments in American history. I think it's more significant than 9/11. I really believe that. I'm not the only one who shares that view, but I think this is a more significant moment in American history. And if the people do not fucking rise up and do something and throw this moron, this lunatic, this raving idiot out of fucking office soon, we will lose our country and we will be involved in a world war. Only thing is, we'll be fighting for Russia against Ukraine and against Europe. And we will be fighting against decency. We will be the evil part, the evil party fighting against decency. So please, please rise up against this fucking tyrant. Express your views against with your representatives. Talk about, we don't tolerate this cocksucker anymore. He needs to be thrown out of office. This is shameful, disgusting, and we cannot tolerate it anymore. TTFN, that's all I have to say. I'm raving here. This is really, really shamefully disgusting. Do this again on another occasion.